Hi, everybody. I'm J.R. Griffin. I'm the SVP of Digital at Fremantle. And today we're going to be talking about streaming, the creator economy, and podcasts, a media realignment. Talk about how we're going to do a deep dive into how all three of those things are really changing how we consume content, who's making content, and how people can make money from that content and can be monetized. Real quick, Fremantle, we're a global production and distribution company. Make a lot of shows you may be familiar with: American Idol, America's Got Talent. Also make some documentaries. Evil Influencer on Netflix just came out over the holiday break. We also make a lot of scripted shows and movies. Begonia the movie, and Baywatch is being rebooted next year this year now on Fox. So you're welcome for that. I have a great panel here to dig into how the cord has been cut. We all know about the cord being cut. That's happened years ago. But there's a massive media landscape that's expanding, right? This is consumer choice, personalization and programming, brand loyalty, and technology behind it all. I have a great panel here. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves so they go down the panel, and then we're going to get into some fun questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you all for being here. My name's Lori Keith. I lead emerging media and technology at the Ad Council. We are the nation's leading nonprofit who over 80 years have worked across the marketing industry to develop campaigns that open hearts, inspire action, and accelerate behavior change. We are responsible for some of the most iconic campaigns in ad history, like Smokey Bear, Friends Don't Let Friends Drive Drunk, Tear the Paper Ceiling, just to name a few. And it's really the result of this incredible partnership across the marketing ecosystem: media agencies, advertising agencies, talent, tech companies that enable us to make exponential impact. So it's a fun job.
And we love working with you.
Thank you for your part.
I'm Lizzie Collins. I'm the SVP of Marketing at SiriusXM Media. We are the largest podcast network. We are Pandora. We are SiriusXM. We are the largest streaming audio network. We have all the fun talent that everyone wants to work with, and I'm just excited to be here. And no, I'm not contagious. I'm just getting over the day BS flu or cold or whatever we all have. I know, he's like, move aside. I'm fine. Everything's fine.
You look great.
Hey everybody, Bo Ordeman. I'm the VP of Advanced TV for the Yahoo DSP. I'd say, our DSP stands up. We're one of the most addressable DSPs in the market. We do a lot with cross-channel reach frequency, and we're one of the most performant DSPs in the market. So happy CES.
Everyone, Alexa Levine, and I'm VP of Sales at Pinterest. I oversee our tech, telco, entertainment, and travel verticals. And for those of you who don't know Pinterest, considered a social media platform, but really a visual search engine as well, and have about 600 million active users.
All right, well, good afternoon. My name's Tony Marlowe. For the past few years, I've been the CMO for LG Ad Solutions. If you're not familiar with LG Ads, we have the footprint of around 200 million LG TVs worldwide. We help put advertising on those TVs, so whether that's in the user interface, literally on the home screen and other parts of the UI, or whether it's in some of the other fast services like LG channels. You've got 350, 400 channels of content. It's all free, it's all streamed, and it's ad supported. So we do the advertising and targeting against that.
Great. So we'll actually start with you, Tony. There's this shift defined by choice, personalization, fandom-driven culture. We can get into that with Pinterest as well, and the tech behind it all. So with more on-platform personalization, how do you define something that's premium content? Because advertisers are looking for premium content. There's a lot of choice there, right? There's a home screen that is maybe chosen by an algorithm for a user. How are buyers responding to what's happening on LG TVs?
Well, let me rip the Band-Aid off and just say AI, because we'll probably say this a few times during the panel.
But try not to.
I think there's two lanes here. So there is, to your question, there's a content lane. And one of the biggest issues for modern streaming is content discovery. How do I find the stuff that I'm going to like? How do I going to like the stuff that I'm there? And I think we're starting to see within the user interface of TVs like LG, it's not just us, you're starting to see AI make things hyper relevant for you. So it used to be that recommendations would be trapped in the app, whether it's app A, app B, app C. We're now seeing it bubble up to the glass level across the totality of your subscriptions, across the totality of your free streaming options and even your linear TV viewership. These are things based off your profile that you might enjoy. And even some of the advanced techniques to make sure that it's me and not my 8-year-old son. So if I'm asking my TV via voice, show me some comedy, my idea of comedy is probably pretty different to my 8-year-old son's idea of comedy. So things like voice recognition used to do login-less profiles and understand it's me. So I think it comes down to personalization. And I think the same is true for advertising as well. So in the same way that we want content that's relevant to us as individuals, the associated as well, and it's all of those same techniques, whether it's using streams of data, AI, but making sure the message I see is something that I can convert on and is enhancing my experience, not necessarily interruptive of it.
How can you stop me from seeing the same ad on a fast channel? Like, or is that on purpose? Do I need to see the same ad on Hulu or a streaming fast channel in a 45-minute session?
You know, there's two problems there. From a consumer perspective, over-frequenting is just annoyance, as you were saying. Like if I've seen the same ad in too short a period of time is an often ignored element of that. If it's too short a period of time, too many times, they get annoyed. For the marketer, that exact same issue is wastage, right? I've paid for an impression that not only isn't contributing to my goals, could be detracting. And I think at the moment there's no perfect solution, but I think one of the best solutions that does exist is what we would call having a direct-to-glass strategy. So take LG Ad Solutions, we're an OEM, original equipment manufacturer within the TV space. There are only a handful of OEMs. If you buy with us and one other OEM, you have literally more than half of the TVs in the US. You can somewhat control your frequency. Certainly you can control your frequency within one OEM. So working with 2-3 partners, it's a lot easier to control your frequency than if you have a buy with 15, 20 different apps that live on the TV where they're all operating in isolation. So I think having a direct-to-glass strategy can be very helpful, and I think in this space it will only improve. It's not getting worse.
Great to hear. And anybody can jump on any topic you want.
I'm going to
Please
jump in
feel-
just to make a
feel-
plug
feel
for
free.
DSPs
Yeah.
in general and programmatic technology, which is, I think, as you look across streaming and linear, it's a very fragmented ecosystem, and consumers are using lots of different services. So just DSPs as a technology to control frequency across publishers and across devices is a pretty common tactic.
And it's pretty common now, like, or are there advances to be made? Like, are you,
Well, I mean, there's
Always.
definitely advances. There's a lot to improve with streaming. I'll touch on it a little bit later, for sure.
okay, great. Lizzie, in the Sirius XM space, right? There's talk about something like owning a bunch of the TV landscape, the audio landscape, right? There's traditional radio stations, podcasters, creators, influencers now in this space. How I want to talk a little about how brands get involved in that landscape and how the number of creators and shows that you have there, are they becoming more selective over time? Is it, what's happening there? It seems like there's a lot of inventory, but also a little bit of selection going on. If not every creator, influencer, or brand wants to be associated with certain brands.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that much like any celebrity, podcast celebrities are now akin to traditional celebrity. They want to be selective about the partners they work with. They want to have a relationship that's long-term so that they can have authentic, meaningful ways of bringing a brand into their audience. So that's absolutely a trend we're seeing. But there's so much money coming into this space that I think more specifically the audio landscape is really performing for advertisers. We've seen a 300% increase in dollars in revenue coming into our podcast space, really on the back of video and on the back of a lot of our podcasters being more omni-channel about how they find audience. So they're showing up in a CTV environment, they're showing up on YouTube. And so it's kind of two-pronged where they're reaching a mass audience, they're finding it in a omni-channel way, so there's a lot of value for advertisers, but they want to have that barrier of entry be there for the authenticity piece. So brands will come to us and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe this creator is so much more expensive than they were last year. Well, it's because they're being more selective. However, there's an increase in CPMs against those strategies, but announcer read or just a standard piece of creative going into those same environments at a more efficient CPM can work just as well. So we're also seeing a trend around advertisers understanding they can balance the two. They can go buy an Alex Cooper for a really high premium and invest with her over a long period of time, not one campaign, maybe 5. And then they can also find their same audience, maybe through a DSP strategy across the whole network. I mean, we are talking about 170 million Americans I can reach every single month, and a DSP can come and access that inventory through a very standard frequency-driven, reach frequency-based calculation that maps to their MMM measurement strategy maybe. And then, of course, do all the really fun, call it sponsorship, call it endorsement, call it, influencer-driven marketing, but it's all the same thing, but a real aligned strategy with a, I don't know, celebrity.
How important is video? I mean, every podcast is a video. People struggle what to call them. I think we were talking earlier, like, just call them shows.
I know, just call a podcast a show at this point. I
Not a visual podcast.
They're all just great shows. Look, it's a way to find new audience. When you talk about the OEMs that are out there bringing, I have a LG product that I'm obsessed with, so I'll plug it. What's it called? The Stand By Me.
Stand By Me.
If you don't have it, go buy it. I want a free one, even though I've already bought like 6 of them. But it's this like TV you drag around with you. It's my pet. You can unplug it. It's like this big. And I take it around the house sometimes because I don't want to install TVs everywhere. And that's allowed me to watch a lot more podcasts in a video format. So I'm like the perfect example of shows I would have just listened to from an audio standpoint. Now I'm watching the YouTube version because I want to see on All In what the chart is that they're showing, or I want to see what's actually happening, because so many of the podcasters are cueing a visual experience while they're talking. So not every show's doing it. Stephanie Sue's a great show. If you've never watched Rotten Mangoes, she has like production value of like a Dateline. I mean, she's incredible, and she's doing it all in Sherman Oaks, California, I think, in her house. So yes, I think the video will continue to grow because storytelling is, it's not that audio isn't gonna not be there, because you can do audio, you can listen to audio when you can't watch video. So we see both as a really powerful way of finding audience. I just think it's about audience growth.
Is there a magic kind of secret sauce to making the perfect show that can also be audio and video? Like, some people lean more toward one, or are there certain tricks that?
I don't think
make
so.
that
I
work?
just think if you're cueing visual, you're going to push more of your audience to a video format. But there are a lot of podcasters that don't want to be on video, and they do really great shows, especially some of the true crime-based shows where you're really just experiencing a story. And I think being able to fill in the detail and have the theater of the mind go to work for you is even more beneficial in that environment versus maybe seeing the crime
The
scene.
microphone. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to see that while you're pushing a TV around your house. That's the last thing you want to see.
You got to get that TV.
All right, Bo, so then how do DSPs help all of this? Help people that are making content, that are making a podcast, or maybe on a streaming platform as well. They're doing social content. They're on TikTok. They're on YouTube. They're everywhere. How does a DSP help? How can they help them monetize what they're making?
Yeah, I think just for context, social video in the creator economy is absolutely exploding, right? It's which, depending on the source of your information, it's between 27 and 37 billion in spend, and so a lot, and that's predominantly premium social video. When you think about the premium video landscape, that's about a third of all video. So I think where DSPs come in, because DSPs don't often access walled gardens, I think the primary area DSPs can help is managing the fragmentation across linear and streaming. That's still 2/3 of premium video investment. It's the biggest screen in the house, and DSPs that do that well are bringing in diverse TV data sets. I know Tony sits on some really valuable ACR data, but also set-top box data, and they're helping brands, they're allowing brands to tap into that data to drive investment toward households that they haven't already reached a bunch of times in linear, and that's really important. I also think DSPs, they need to play their part because a lot of social videos within walled gardens, they need to be interoperable. They need to have an open data sharing philosophy and share log files and really help marketers connect the dots as best they can across the open internet and those walled gardens. And then lastly, I think you mentioned this, DSPs can expand some of these creator and brand partnerships beyond just the social media environments. I love the example of Dunkin' and what they did with Charli D'Amelio, who is the #1 followed dancer on TikTok. It did incredible within TikTok, but then they expanded it into the Super Bowl. They expanded it into streaming. They reached those audiences outside the social ecosystem, and DSPs can help with that.
Lori, how does the ad council show up here? Right? We're talking about money, creators, entertainment. How do you show up in this on-demand, personalized world?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with Lizzie. Omnichannel approach is especially important for the ad council. We're trying to raise awareness on some of the most critical issues in America, from mental health to firearm safety. And so we have to have a broad strategy where we have assets running on broadcast TV, and social, digital. Like we need to have assets running everywhere. But what's really exciting about the podcast streaming audio space is our ability to really go deep with our issues on this kind of nuanced, longer form content with a podcaster, which most podcasters people view as their friends, their trusted messengers. They're these entry points to culture, whether you're listening up to a podcast to get your news or if you're listening for entertainment. Maybe you need health information. You can just search for whatever your ailment is, and there might be a podcast about it. And so people are, on demand, to your question, is, people are listening when they're walking on the treadmill. Maybe they're listening while they're, dropping their kid off at school. And so for us to be able to partner with these longer form content, talk about an issue like mental health, 15-minute segment where someone's sharing, a real story and raising awareness about this campaign, sharing the resources, that's proven to be really successful for us, and it's going to be something that we continue to do. We just launched, actually, our own podcast for one of our youth mental health campaigns called Listen In, which is, a doctor and 2 mental health experts sharing different resources for how parents can check in on their teens that might be struggling with mental health, because we know it's over half of 10 to 24-year-olds in America are struggling. And so we're also now leaning into not only partnering with specific podcasts and specific podcast hosts, but also maybe it makes sense to actually launch our own podcast, because these are very emotionally charged topics that deserve more than a 30-second video spot.
Yeah, you must have gone from like 30-second video spots and commercials and PSAs into this where you can kind of dig into something give it some time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We just, one of the most recent partnerships we did was with The Skim. They have a podcast called Well Played, and our adult mental health campaign, Love Your Mind, features different athletes. We have various spots talking about the rituals that athletes go through and kind of the mental health struggles that they deal with and how they show up for themselves to play. And so couple athletes that we partnered with, Lexi Brown from the WNBA and Lori Hernandez, who's Olympic gymnast, they went on the Well Played podcast and talked about their mental health journeys and kind of how they show up for themselves, and how their mental health practice is actually like a sign of strength for them. And so you can imagine, someone that's a subscriber of The Skim, we reached 35,000 people in each of these episodes. They might not have seen our ad, but now they're hearing this 15-minute segment with Lori Hernandez and going, wow, like if she struggled with mental health, maybe I should check out this website. Maybe I should go get resources. And so we're really leveraging kind of the power and fandom of sports and using platforms like podcasts to really get the message out there and hopefully inspire people to, check in on their mental health.
And Lori, I just want to jump in because I think you have the right to play there. The ad council does. And I think that speaks to the need for authenticity with creators, whichever platform you're using them on. And so when people started using creators, think back to the MCN days of YouTube, and you'd work and just find a creator, and it was all about reach, right? You didn't really care what they were doing. You were like, they're going to reach as many people as possible. That's evolved, and so today, niche creators are really the ones that people find the message resonates with, and there's so much more meaning from that because they do feel like your actual friends, and so you can still get reach, obviously, from those big partnerships, but adding in that true, authentic voice where you feel connected to that person does make a big difference in marketing.
And I think that's going to be a big predictor of measurement for the next couple cycles, because traditionally, like last click doesn't measure what we're talking about here. And so when you look at the MMM modeling or any of the data that we're sharing, it's going to inform how we quantify what we're talking about, because it's not represented yet in the way advertisers are measuring. standard ad campaigns quarter over quarter. There's not enough value placed on the authentic connection because it is hard to measure. It has a longer time horizon. You have to wear in a message. It's maybe only to 35,000 people. You then have to model that out. It takes a little bit more of a focused and conscious approach to say, if we believe that, if we believe the 35,000 listeners are of value, that's a small number on a standard media campaign. How do we really understand that within our model to give it the value that we intuitively believe it has?
Yeah, and I should say in addition to the feature on these podcasts, and it's a long-term strategy with the SCIM, we have 17 athletes as part of this campaign, so we're going to continue to go onto this podcast with these athletes sharing their mental health stories. But in addition to the podcast, we're also running features on their newsletter, which reaches 1.2 million subscribers. So,
but I think the 35 is a great number,
Yeah,
and I'm sure that there's micro-influencers within
That's right.
the world of Pinterest. I'm not saying it's a small number. I think it's a highly valuable number.
Yeah.
In this day and age, to get 35,000 people to pay attention to you,
Yeah.
for real, and not just be, it being fed to them is a meaningful number.
But also, how do you combine, like, if you're doing the podcast, like, is there any other platforms or media within this publisher ecosystem that you can also reach these same subscribers? Or maybe people that didn't listen to the podcast, but they subscribe to the SCIM newsletter, so they're going to get the content that way too. So we always try to kind of think beyond just the one media opportunity.
It seems explaining that measurement's going to be a new thing for everyone up here, like that authentic touch point. Like, how do you explain when someone just wants numbers? They want reach, they want numbers, they want to know where their money went. It's going to be a very interesting couple years, explaining what this authentic measurement can mean. The right people. I would say you hit the right 10,000 people.
It speaks to the open ecosystem approach that you mentioned. It's going to be the trust between buyer and seller to come together and say, we are willing to park the data you need within a data lake, within a data clean room, for us to have a data conversation around who did you reach, how were they affected by your message, how does that affect future planning, what other level of data can we share around their behaviors on our platform, how can you share what you're seeing about the same type of audiences. And I think it's going to be just a different type of partnership between buyer and seller, with a more democratized approach to data versus just here's the campaign level data that we're willing to share with you. And it's new for all of us. And you're seeing just a lot of those conversations here at CES around how do we plug into each other better to make these.
That feels friendly and
It's
nice,
very nice
right?
and cozy.
Doesn't it feel nice?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I
I
like it.
think
that for doing
It's a new
TikTok.
year.
People, a term that's thrown around a lot is this generative engine optimization too, and that's something that we're laser focused on. It's like if someone is on a ChatGPT or a Copilot and they're a big fan of Lori Hernandez and maybe they're also struggling with mental health, like this content can be, hey, check out this podcast. And so that area too, I think, is just ripe for, going to really change the media ecosystem.
Yeah, I'd add, I also think it opens up advertising opportunities, whether it's a podcast or streaming, when it is a niche topic that's attracting people that are just very passionate about it. Whether it's the mental health thing you're talking about. I mean, with us on LG channels, there is an original piece of content called The Rivalries, and it goes to non-tier 1 sports, it goes to these colleges, and it might be like a volleyball team's rivalry with a neighboring school. And it's very niche, and it aggregates this audience that's really passionate about this sport or this school, and it also provides these regional and local kind of advertising opportunities, which it may not have the same appeal as sort of a national, the NFL on a Sunday, but there are people who care deeply about it, and they care about the advertising associated with it as well. And I think it's a really similar concept to what you're talking about.
That's great. Alexa, let's talk about niche on Pinterest, right? Authentic measurement, people fandom, hardcore fandom there. How is Pinterest becoming a growing part of this omni-channel?
Yeah. So I don't know how many Pinterest users there are out there. Love it. Pinterest has evolved over time, and I will say earlier, 2009, 10, I was on Pinterest because I was thinking like, oh, what will my wedding look like? Those kinds of things. People are on Pinterest now for so much more and so much more often because it is a place of discovery and inspiration. And so I'm not tearing down other platforms. I've worked at most of them. They are all great for different reasons, but I will say Pinterest is a really positive place. And so people come to the platform to discover new things. And so for entertainment advertisers, what that often means is people come with an open mindset. And if they see a video, for example, a trailer, they slow down their scroll. I mean, we've seen that people scroll much slower on Pinterest because your behavior isn't to just lean back and go like this. You're leaning in to try to find new things. And so what that then means is you've discovered something, and now people plan something. There's a lot of intent behind it. And so maybe you saw the trailer for Wuthering Heights. Well, now people are building boards with Wuthering Heights and lace, and they're planning what their decor is going to look like in their room because they're moving into a new apartment. And they're saying, okay, I need to have a party for the premiere of this. What am I going to wear? And so it does create this fandom because people create their lives around it. And so when you think about, especially for entertainment, IP is so, so important. And so people discover IP on the platform, but really it lives on Pinterest and creates this fandom, which is a really awesome thing to see.
So it sounds like it's a wonderful place, Pinterest, right? It's nice,
It's a
it's
wonderful
peaceful, we love it. People are slowing down watching trailers. But behind the scenes, right, you've acquired TV Scientific that can look at data, sort of predict what people are going to do. Maybe they slow down and watch a trailer, now direct them toward boards around that subject, brands and advertisers can present it to them.
Really exciting that we did announce that we are intending to acquire TV Scientific, which one of the things that Pinterest has done the last 2.5 years is really become a performance engine. And so our CEO, Bill Reddy, came in and said, this is a platform where people are coming and ready to purchase. And so we really are a lot more full of funnel today. But the secret sauce on Pinterest that I've seen is that we do understand insights and trends before anyone, because we see the authentic, you as a Pinterest user truly are authentic because you're not worried about how people are going to see you on the platform. And so we have all these signals about what people are excited about and what they want. And so we're going to be able to take that richness and partner with TV Scientific, and you're going to see what's happening on the big screen as an advertiser and bring that together with all the user intent signal that we have on Pinterest so that when someone makes a purchase, you can see that full process of what they went through and all of the activity that they have on the platform as well. So it is really exciting, and I'm between two really knowledgeable TV guys, so you probably know more than me, but I do think it's going to add a lot of value for advertisers to see not just what they get from a CPM, paying for a CPM, but actually what is the true ROI that I get by advertising on TV and seeing the impact on a platform like Pinterest.
And you probably can't speak to it, but this dedicated deep fandom on the platform leads to conversations like OpenAI looking at Pinterest, because they know there are actual people there doing with intent.
Yeah, I mean, tremendous amount of intent, and I will say that the visual search piece of Pinterest is especially where we're seeing a tremendous amount of stickiness, and I recommend anyone who hasn't used the platform to go on there, and you can actually type in like looking for outfit for CES, and it'll come back and bring you relevant things related to how you behave on the platform. And so it's really becoming a useful tool, and again, showing a lot of that intent that we do use Gen AI, is continuing to be personalized to give you what you want and need.
Great. I want to go back to the streaming players, right? And how I remember linear TV is done because Netflix and Disney Plus are here. Now FAST is coming because people want to pay for subscriptions, and now there's social video and creators and people staring at TikTok instead of turning on a TV or going to some of those other things. How, maybe Bo, this is something you can answer. How are streaming players evolving to account for this competition from social video?
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll hear from Tony on this one too, as a streaming player. But
how do you embrace it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think so. First of all, creators and social video is largely concentrated amongst millennials and Gen Zs. And I think the stat was like 44% of millennials and 58% of Gen Z spend more time on social video than they do in premium streaming environments, which is pretty wild. So in my mind, that means streamers are competing very heavily against social video for attention, for ad dollars. It's a very real thing. Netflix is competing against YouTube, right? Like that's absolutely happening. So I think what we're seeing the streamers start to do, and I'll definitely be interested in Tony's take on this, is start to incorporate elements of social video and short form video into their ecosystems. And we're seeing like a Disney and a Netflix, their app has a vertical scroll and they're auto playing content and they're algorithmically putting the right show in front of you, which is really core to what social video did to get where they are. I also think, we're going to see streamers leverage their intellectual property. So like what Disney's doing with OpenAI right now and Sora, where they own Disney and Marvel and Star Wars and Pixar, and they're allowing users on Sora to use AI to create short-form content and start to compete with some of the social platforms on quantity and scale of content. They don't have to build themselves. And then I think streamers in general one of the big knocks in streaming has been buyers don't know what they're buying in streaming, right? Even if they're buying in a premium environment like a Disney, they don't know the show or the channel. They may not know the pod position or the slot in the pod, or did they serve next to something contextually relevant? And I think they're starting to open up that kimono a little bit, which will make streaming a more performant medium. That's how they're trying to compete.
Tony, what's your take?
I think there's a lot. Firstly, there's a lot there. I think the core trend really goes back to the consumer, though. So I think what I would say is more than ever, certainly more than recent times, the consumer is more agnostic around the source of the content they want. Right? Do I want a podcast? Do I want a quick snippet video, long form? Do I care which app it's on? Do I want it free? Do I want it subscription? I think they just want the content that they want, and they want it to be relevant. And so I think coming back to your original question, you kind of see this bleeding in both directions. So we've sort of focused on, okay, do these social media creators bleed into kind of television and other environments? And we've seen that. I think Mr. Beast is one of the most successful examples. He had a big show on Netflix, Beast TV. Like, he's made that transition, but we also see it in the other direction. So for example, a more established celebrity, I guess we would say, we had 50 Cent join us for our New Front earlier in last year, 2025. He has curated the 50 Cent Action Channel, which yes is on LG channels, where he essentially curates Hollywood movies that he loves. There are interstitials with some of his music videos, and he's starting to sort of come into this streaming. So it's not just that these social creators are elevating into television, you're also seeing more established players starting to say, I would like to create a fast channel. I would like to create my own content. I would like to create a connection with people who like my stuff and like me in new ways to how I traditionally did it. Whether, with 50 Cent, obviously, and the kids call him 50. I can't say that, I don't think. Whether that's his music, whether that's some of the movies and TV shows he's been involved in, he's bringing that. So I think the core trend is that people just want stuff they like, and they're caring less about how they get it. And I believe all of the trends you said are true. We've observed it. There was a shift, certainly aligned with the pandemic, of people moving into streaming. They streamed more than ever before, but back then it was really characterized by subscription television. I think since then, within streaming, there's been a shift into free ad-supported. Economic headwinds playing, or at least fear of economic headwinds has played a lot into that, where people don't want yet another monthly subscription, so they're adopting some of this free stuff. And I think people are opening up the portfolio of how they consume content, and I think that's the core trend.
Before I ask everybody their 2026 predictions, real quick, when 50 Cent comes on with LG channels, is the expectation that there's a channel, there's shows, is there social content, is there his brand across every other platform, or it's already there, so we have to continue to do it?
Well, first, in this example, I have to say he was really cool on multiple levels, in that this channel is something he feels very passionately about. So he was very active on social, saying this thing exists, we're now available on LG channels. He and his team, very engaged in saying we would love to come to a New Front, discuss this on stage, let the advertisers know that this is a thing that they can get involved in, as we also educate the consumers that there's this new content available. And so I think as we see mega artists like that get involved, I hope that that's the template. That's obviously my first example, but I think we're getting more of that, where they understand you've got to drive the interest from the consumer level. You need to inform the advertisers that there's an advertising opportunity and an opportunity to connect with an audience. And I think it's going to play out that way. I think we will see more easy and friendly mechanisms of getting there than difficult ones.
I mean, more and more celebrities need to become creators, really, and
Absolutely.
Their brand has to become important, omni-channel across everything, right? All right, so we've got 5 minutes left. Let's talk about 2026. You want to go first?
Okay.
What's a big? It's January 2026. What's a prediction?
I mean, I have a lot of ways I could answer this question, but I think what I'm, focused on and what I'm looking at right now at the Ad Council is this ability to build an AI-powered chat experience and have it live on your brand, or in our case, campaign website. And I think we're going to start to see more of this. I think with companies like Microsoft has their enterprise tool called Copilot Studio that they launched last March, enabling people to use the Copilot, powered by Copilot, and have this, using only your campaign data and only what you feed into it. But when someone lands on your site, in our case, maybe it's a mental health campaign, or maybe it's, a gun safety campaign, and being able to kind of give very specific information to someone that is able to have this like very sophisticated chat experience that's powered by a large language model. And obviously we're not going to look at any PII, but to be able to look at themes of those conversations that are happening on our site, when does the conversation drop off? When do they get the information that they need? Can we survey them at the end of the chat experience and ask them, is there anything else that could have been better about this chat experience? I feel like, especially for social cause campaigns, like this ability to really get deep with your audience. Right now, the user experience is you go to a website, you click around, you read, you try to click all these buttons to get to what you need, and hopefully you get to what you need. But if you can go and say, like, I need some running shoes, I'm going to, run this Paris Marathon in April, like, what are the best shoes I should get for that terrain? And you can start to have like a conversation with someone that lands on your site and then glean those insights and inform future marketing campaigns. I see that that's going to be something that happens a lot more in 2026.
Gosh, for me, audio is 30% of time spent and like 4% of ad spend. So really big gap there. And I think the prediction is that we have to solve the data challenge in getting the right information around not just the campaign itself, but the adjacency to content, the creative that was running, the time of day, all of the necessary metadata that will help inform a model that'll finally show the true value of audio. I think marketers know it's there, but it's just so hard to measure, and it's been so hard to measure for so long. And so our prediction is just we've done all the work, and we announced a partnership with Snowflake, and we've partnered with Innovid and so many different companies to just unlock the data so that advertisers can finally ingest it properly and understand it, so that 4% maybe goes to 6%. That would be what I would like, 7% by the end of the year. And so that's, I think, what we'll be talking about here for like the next 2 days. And yes, AI to layer on top of that and be able to quickly and effortlessly make predictions about what should be the next campaign, what should be the next buy. That capability is there. We just have to get the data organized and the data schemas set up correctly.
I think everyone's going to mention AI in their answer, but from a DSP perspective, we're sort of in the 6th or 7th inning of getting AI set up to handle like all the agentic, complex manual workflows of setting up a campaign and sort of automating the planning and the execution and the troubleshooting. And so that part's definitely happening in 26. What I'm hoping and predicting we'll see is the creative side, right? So the programmatic stuff is the plumbing, it's the poetry. That's the other 50% of the impact when a user sees an ad. And I'm hoping to see a lot more adoption among marketers. There's so many capabilities to make that streaming ad a lot more tailored to the individual than we see out in the ecosystem today. And I think that'll help protect streaming from the rise of social video.
Nice.
So a few weeks ago, we launched Pinterest Predicts for 2026. So we do a trend report every year based on the user behavior on Pinterest and the 80 billion searches plus each month that we have on the platform. And we've been shown to be about 90% accurate with that. And so there are about 21 trends. I would say the one I think that I'm starting to see a lot is around maximalism again. So glamourati, for example, is what we're calling it. Brooches are in. I think people are just looking for warmth, and there's been so much instability and so many macroeconomic conditions that people just want to really lean into this idea of maximalism, and that's going to show up, I think, in content and shows that are being made. You're probably seeing release schedules for movies, for example, and seeing that they're really vibrant and rich. Home decor, it's going to affect how people are dressing, so I think that's going to be a big trend. Not me, Pinterest thinks, big trend in 2026.
I want a brooch. I feel like that would look good on my
Yeah,
jacket.
I
I
love
love
It would. We need to get you one.
I was going to say, I didn't think brooches would come up at all, but I'm happy it did. All right,
Tony
bring-
has a small one.
Yeah, well,
Maybe this
does.
counts.
he's on trend.
You're
Tony.
bling on it, but
Well, now you got to bring us home. You got about 30
I
seconds
mean,
left.
brooches. I think this year local is going to have a lot of the spotlight, maybe more than as anticipated within streaming and television environments. And I don't say this with any disrespect, but I think local advertising has almost been comically bad, and maybe sometimes they lean into that for some of the effect. And I think now with AI on the creative side, if you're a local or regional business, you can effectively create a very professional looking television ad without needing a massive agency or a studio and all of these resources. Combined with that, the ability to now target within streaming environments on a local and regional basis more than has been true in the past. I think you're going to see an explosion of these not necessarily lesser known, but these next tier businesses really engage in streaming. I think it's going to be good for local audiences. I think it's going to be good for small to medium enterprises and local and regional enterprises. And it's just going to drive that relevance that we were all talking about earlier.
I'm going to launch a local brooch company, right? That's the takeaway?
You heard it
Good,
here
I'm all
first.
set for 2026. Thank you, panelists, for coming. I really
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank
the
you.
insights here.